Okay, so this is part 2 to... Shoot, I don't know. It's been 10 years since I told my mom, or 10 years since my relationship with my dad changed. Hi. Okay, I don't know what I said last. But anyway, so we'll fast forward to... I guess this is going into a whole story time. We'll fast forward to when my mom picks me up. And so we get to Massachusetts. Honestly, I don't even remember getting there. I don't remember her picking me up. I don't remember none of that. What I do remember is a specific day, and I'm sitting in the living room, and I guess we were talking about what happened, and my mom... Okay, I apologize for all the interruptions. So yes, my mom, I remember her like flipping out, and oh, okay, so we were talking about it, and she was trying to tell me that I needed to go to the cops to tell what happened. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. Like, I don't want to do that. All this and that, like giving a whole bunch of reasons of why I didn't want to put him in prison for that. Mind you, the school a year before that, like around the time that the last time happened, okay, I'm going to go through circles, but around the time the last time happened, I went to the therapist, the counselor at school, and I told her what was happening because I was struggling personally. The next day in school, I get called down to the counselor's office, and she has police officers in there, and I'm like, what the hey? And I'm crying, and they're like, tell us what happened, you know, like, you can't go home with him, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I was like distraught. Mind you, my dad was in and out of jail for majority of my life. Then he was in prison for 7 years until I was 11, which 11 is, from what I can recall, is when the abuse started, when he got out. So I'm already traumatized with him not being in my life. And like I said, we were still like really close. I was always a daddy's girl. Like, even when he was locked up, I was always crying to see him and all this stuff. And like, so the thought of him going back to prison, and then me also at that age knowing like what they do, or the stories I've heard of what they do to people in prison that have committed those kind of crimes, and then also thinking about my siblings, I'm like, no way in hell am I sending him to prison or sending him to jail. So I'm telling them like, no, I will tell them, I will say I made it up, like I will say whatever, but I'm not going to go further with this. Like, I only came to the school counselor because I needed to talk about it. You know, I didn't think that she was going to sit here and call the cops or whatever. So, and at this point, it was the end of the day at school, and he was outside waiting for me, and they were telling me, you can't go, we can't let you go with him. Like, you have to tell him something came up, you can't go home with him. And I'm like, and I think honestly at this point, they ended up opening a whole CPS case, and at this point I'm pretty sure I was living with my girlfriend at the time, because after what happened with him, I didn't want to go home. Like, I didn't want to stay home, and that was finally when he started letting me stay, because he was very strict with me. Like, I could barely go to my girlfriend's house. Like, I definitely couldn't stay the night at her house. But after I stopped what he was doing the last time, he gave me a lot of leeway, because he was very scared that I was going to go and tell everybody and run away and all these things. So the CPS, I remember them having to go to my girlfriend's house, making sure like I had where to rest, that there was food in the house, blah blah blah. So anyways, so again, when my mom was bringing this back up again, I'm thinking about all this stuff. Like, I'm not trying to go through all that again. So there comes a point though, she actually convinces me, and I'm like, okay, yes, I will call the cops. And my brother overhears this. My brother's 2 years younger than me, and he flips out. You're not sending my dad to jail. No, I'm not going to let you do that. I'm going to call him. I'm going to tell him, blah, blah, blah. And I was very, like, I was hurt and confused as to why he was responding to that, because the last time my dad did anything to me, my brother was in the house, and he saw my dad's reaction to me stopping him, and my dad's reaction was very dramatic, like he had a knife to his stomach and everything. So my brother knew that he did something. So I'm like, if you know he did something to me, like, why would you even be so mad? But at the same, I never blamed him. Those were the thoughts running through my head at the time. But in reality, I never blamed my brother, because if my dad was able to convince me and all these things, or make me feel bad for telling on him all these things, of course he could do it to my younger brother. You know, even if my younger brother saw the aftermath, I went through it and for years didn't say anything, you know. So I never blamed him, but I was feeling a lot of emotions in that moment. So he did call my dad. My dad ended up calling me, and he just kept saying, baby, what happened? Baby, what happened? And I'm crying. I'm like, please stop calling me baby, because after the last time happened, I had told him to stop calling me baby, because he would always call me baby, and it just was making me so uncomfortable. So anyway, I was like, I told mom, I don't know exactly what I was saying, but I remember saying, like, I told mom, and he was like, but what happened? And I'm like, you know what happened, like the last time this blah blah, and I kept saying, like, that wasn't the first time, because it happened years apart. Like the bigger events to me happened years apart, and then there would be little things in between, and I was like, that wasn't the first time you did anything, like that wasn't the first thing that happened. He was like, but what happened? Then I remember my aunt took the phone from him, and she was like, she just kept saying, please just tell me he didn't penetrate you, please just tell me he didn't penetrate you. And I'm like, why does that matter? I'm like, would that make it any better? Like, and she's like, no, but just please just tell me he didn't penetrate you, please just tell me he didn't penetrate you. Like, basically she wanted to know if he just was touching or if he actually full on raped me, you know. And I'm like, no, he didn't, but that doesn't matter. And I remember even hearing her ask me that, like, I felt so like hurt, like really, why the hell does that matter? Like, and I think she kept saying, like, I don't want to hate my brother, like, please just tell me he didn't do that, blah blah blah. And at the same time, I'm talking to my dad, having this conversation, and then my mom is on this time screaming, like, no, you need to go kill yourself, blah blah blah, hang up the phone, blah blah. And she ended up taking the phone from me and telling him off, like telling him to go kill himself and all this stuff. And I was just like, I was going through it because I'm still feeling all this love for my dad, and so much confusion and so much everything. Like, it was just a lot. And yeah, I ended up not going to the cops. I don't even remember how the rest of that time went, but I know I didn't stay there. Like, my mom was trying to get me to stay there, and I was like, no, like, I don't want to live here. I didn't want to live in Massachusetts. I wanted to go back to Syracuse. But I never lived with my dad again, like, after I moved with my girlfriend. So I ended up going back with my girlfriend and her family until my mom ended up moving back to Syracuse so that I could live with her, because I did not want to stay there in Massachusetts. And then I remember, like, my grandma, my aunt was also like talking a lot of crap, and I was so angry because my aunt also, she had a boyfriend who used to do stuff to me also, and I never said anything, but that day I did. I don't know if I said it that I know I brought it up that day. Before that though, because she ended up starting to talk to him again. Like, they had broke up for years, and I was really young when really young when he was doing stuff to me. And eventually she ended up having a daughter. When I found out that she was talking to him again, I was really close to her daughter. Her daughter's actually closely named after me. Anyway, so I ended up telling her, and she didn't believe me. And I brought it up that day, and I brought it up again that day, like you have all this stuff to say about my dad, but when I told you about this dude, you're telling me that didn't happen, and you're only saying that because you were in love with him, whatever the case may be. But I know I was just distraught, and I was like, I've always been very grateful because my mom believed me right away, but I also didn't have an open space to actually sit there and talk about what happened and how I was feeling, because she had her own emotions about it, you know. And it always just went sour and just talking bad about him and stuff. And I wasn't at that stage yet of hating him or being angry at him or anything. I was still, like, I don't know, in a traumatized state and sad and confused and all these things, you know. I think that's all I got right now. This is about to cut off anyway. Yeah, it's been a crazy, a wild journey ever since. I love you guys. See you later. It's about to cut off.